Moving into the area of setting your goals and specifically looking at long-term, medium-term and short-term goals and how best to set those up. When looking at long-term goals, we really do want it to be long-term. So we're looking at anywhere from a year to 2, ideally. You don't want to be too much longer than that because it's difficult to maintain motivation, but certainly not shorter than a year. As an example, it might be that you want to get off your medication, or that you want to lose a significant amount of weight, or that you want to do some sort of physical thing that's going to really push you and challenge you, but that's going to be amazing to achieve. You might want to fit into a smaller clothing size. Perhaps you even want to change jobs. It really doesn't matter what the goal is, but this long-term goal will determine what your medium-term goals look like. I just want to reiterate that I'm saying a year or 2 because in general it takes longer than we think it does to achieve our goals. I think there's a pattern with a lot of people where they have a tendency to jump into setting up goals that are relatively short, and I think part of that is their concern for motivation. So typically what they might do is use 2 or 3 months as a long-term goal and then set up medium and short-term goals under that umbrella. But to my mind, 3 months really is a short-term goal. And the reason I suggest this is because we're dealing with health, or we're dealing with weight. Actually, the two really go hand in hand. And this is one of the reasons these ridiculous magazine covers, get a beach body in 6 weeks. It's really, no. I mean, if you have always exercised, and I think I've used this as an example previously, if you've always exercised and you've always been pretty lean and you're just going through a bit of a slump, then sure. But you have to look at your past. If you haven't exercised regularly, or perhaps you don't have a lot of muscle mass, or your diet is not great, your health is not great, these are all the things that you have to look at and address before you can get to that point. So I say ignore those sorts of things and look at it into the long-term future, because that way you're much more sure of success and you're being realistic. You're being realistic. And so when you've got these very realistic steps that happen along the way, you're much more likely to stay the course, because you know that you're working for something in the future. The problem is that we're very instant gratification focused, and so it's almost like, oh well, if I haven't lost weight in 3 weeks, then forget it, I'm not going to do this thing. So I always think it's worth looking quite far into the distance for the ultimate long-term goal and working your way back from there. Medium-term goals, well, these would be a time frame of around 6 to 12 months. For example, reducing your medication by half, losing a lesser substantial amount of weight, but still something significant. Perhaps if you use the half marathon as an example, you want to put a distance to the run you're able to do. You want to, if, for example, it's get into smaller clothing size, be specific about what kind of size you want to get into. And then you could, for example, with a job, start an interview process. In this sense, it might be a halfway point to get you to that long-term goal. And this will very definitely dictate the short-term goals that you're going to set up. Looking at those short-term goals, these are set for around 0 to 3 months and can be repeated at 4 to 6 months, 7 to 9 months, and 10 to 12 months. So, for example, you might want to chat to your doctor about how to reduce your meds, create an option to stand at work so that you're more physically active on a daily basis. You might want to skip breakfast 5 times weekly, practice intermittent fasting, maybe prepare healthy dinner daily, or research possible new jobs. But these are essentially your day-to-day activities that would support you gearing yourself towards that medium-term goal, which in turn is the way you're going to support yourself moving towards the long-term goal.